I have a couple of announcements before we get started. The first announcement is that White Mountain is going to hold an Agni Yoga study group in September. We'll be meeting for an hour and a half once a month, starting the second Monday in September. And we have a few openings left. I think we have 3, maybe 4 openings left. So you are invited, if you're interested, to send me an email at staff@wmea-world.org. Tell me of your interest, a little bit of your background, your spiritual background, and why you are interested in Agni Yoga. And I'll get back to you, and we'll take it from there. The other announcement is today is St. Sergius' birthday. Isn't that interesting? He was born in 1314, so a few years ago, and he was considered a spiritual leader. He's from Moscow. He was considered a spiritual leader and a leading Russian. And there's so much to learn about this man. You can learn a lot about him on the internet. His full name is St. Sergius of Radonez, and that was his spiritual name. So, having said that, so happy birthday, St. Sergius. So let me start. This morning is talking about joy. Is joy a part of our future? And let me start with a quote from Supermundane, verse 55. The Master says, we can affirm that despondency will not cross the threshold of our abode, for joy lives there. Let people remember that no one can deprive them of their joy. Even a machine works better when it is used with joy. Decidedly, everything can be set right and improved, and nothing can close the way of or the way to perfectment. He says, for us it is a festival when we see that our co-workers have understood the shield of joy. And I'm reminded that we're having problems with the webcam connecting to GoToWebinar. And so our sound crew and video crew and recording crew, they've set up a live stream link for you if you want to actually see what's going on this morning. And it's in the chat section. You'll see it on your screen, and just go down. It might be off to the lower right. Just look for the chat session. You'll see a little square box. You'll see a link. You click on the link, and that should take you right to the live stream. Louis, is that right? Okay. So let's move on. Most of our failures in business, in relationships, our marriages, are caused by the memory of the past images of failure. Now, this is something just to think about. Think about your marriage, think about your friendships, your relationships with your children, your relationships with your past marriage. Maybe a past marriage. And think about what caused the failure. And the teaching says it's because of past images of failure. So that means that these past images of failure have to be embedded really, really deeply into our subconscious. So this is certainly something to think about. The teaching says if we cannot overcome the past images of failure, then the joy of the future will not be ours. It will not be for us. Day and night, people talk about the past. And particularly when they get older, it seems like the only thing that they have to talk about is the past. And where it may be of interest and cathartic for them, it's not the life of the disciple. It's not the life of the initiate. It's not the life of an Agni yogi. And this is why. So oftentimes when people talk about the past, they pull us down and they cement us to their past images, as well as cementing themselves to their past images. And what I have found is that the people who are so enmeshed in their past images, they no longer practice the virtues in their life. For example, forgiveness. It just isn't there. It's vaporized. It's such a powerful virtue, is forgiveness. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't really, it's not important whether that person accepts your forgiveness or even knows about this virtue of forgiveness. The most healing element that can push you out of the past and begin to think about your future is forgiveness. That is one of the virtues. Forgiveness can help towards eradicating these past images of failure. Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, forgiving the country, forgiving the leaders of the country. Forgiveness is so important. If we are not intelligent enough, we get lost. And if we are not careful, we will become lost forever. They're criticizing, gossiping, slandering, makes us feel that that's it. That's all there is. There's nothing else. Agni Yoga instructs that joy can only be found in the future, not the past. It's a very powerful statement. You really think about it. Why? Because it's so easy to be pulled into the past. The older you are, the more enveloped many people find their lives, in the past. But again, that's not the path of Agni Yoga. It's not the path of the Agni Yogi. It's not the path of discipleship. Agni Yoga instructs us that joy can only be found in the future, not the past. So we think, and we react, and then we think we aren't good enough, so why try anymore? And we give up. Slanderers and gossipers are the greatest enemy of the progress of human beings because they stop us in the image where we failed. And then we become a pillar of salt. In the Bible, there's a well-known story where Lot's wife turned back and became petrified. This is so real. I'm old enough now to know people like this who have become petrified. And I bet you do too. Yeah. And we don't want to be around them if we can avoid it, right? Yeah. People are hurting one another, killing one another, so to speak, holding them to their past, and always turning to the past. And that's why we are losing the joy of the future. So what is the future? Think about this, a new definition to the term future. Our future is improvement. So, if you're taking notes, you can write in, my future is one, or bullet point, improvement. The next is perfection. The next bullet point to your future is beauty. And then the next bullet point is an interesting word and an even more interesting experience. It's ecstasy. Imagine your future being ecstasy. How do you know? What is ecstasy? If you've experienced ecstasy, let me tell you, it's like the taste of the gods. There's nothing, there's no words. It's just such a pure expression of beauty and exaltation. So that's the future. So that's another bullet point, ecstasy. And then success. Success. When you are 50 years old, 55, 60 years old, are you still thinking about success that will manifest in your future? Or are you thinking about your failures that will remain with you as you move into the future? Success will be there if you are striving toward improvement, perfection, beauty, ecstasy. And then the last three bullet points. The first one is brightness. The next is intelligence. And the next is wisdom. Intelligence, to me, this is so interesting to think about. Intelligence, part of our future. So what does this mean? Intelligence means study. It means expanding our knowledge about whatever interests us or whatever does not interest us, whatever bugs us, whatever irritates us. Let us approach these irritations and disinterests with intelligence. It's something as simple as why am I irritated with this situation, this person, this country, this religion, this philosophy? Why am I irritated with it? This is where intelligence clicks in. Get some books, go on the internet, do some research, learn about it. This is called striving. And through striving, we build a deeper understanding of ourselves and others and of the world. Brightness, intelligence, and then wisdom. Intelligence gives way to wisdom. This is future. Improvement, perfection, beauty, ecstasy, success, brightness, intelligence, and wisdom. If future is improvement, then the next thing is to realize, which you probably already have, is that we are undergoing various steps and processes to transformation. Transformation, future. We will come closer and closer to the higher self, closer to being real human beings, not just the product of our past failures and successes. If we are striving toward perfection, then perfection is going to be our future. This is why Winston Churchill said, perhaps, never give up. If we're striving toward perfection, then perfection is going to be our future, not the failures of our past, not the flaws and so forth of our past. If beauty is going to be our future, then what? Then we must strive toward all things made of beauty. If we turn to our past, we will become a pillar of salt. Sometimes they're called sourpusses. I know, isn't it funny? Well, we have to lighten up a little bit. Yeah, pillars of salt. Here's an example I found, a story in the teaching. If you have a blueprint, it says, for example, if you have a blueprint of a great building, you begin to build the foundation of that great building. Of course, this is all metaphor. Construction has begun, and the building is going up, floor after floor, right up to the penthouse. You are working from the blueprint of your future. The blueprint for us is the archetype that is embedded in the core of our soul. Through meditation, through striving into the future, we ignite that core, which opens the door to the archetype of who we are going to become, sooner or later. So, we want to build our lives on the foundation of this archetype, prototype that we have in the core of our soul, the core of our being. But what happens, isn't this true? I mean, this is so simplistic, but we live in the messes of our life without even realizing that these messes are due to our choices. These messes have nothing to do with the archetype, with this prototype that is in the core of our being. It has to do with our choices, our karma, our lack of intelligence, and also, in a way, I think our laziness. It's like the line of least resistance, right? And so then we find ourselves in these situations and we can blame everybody that we can think of and say they're the cause of our messes. But we can eradicate these messages by letting go of the past, work with forgiveness, and try to make a contact with this prototype that you've carried around with you life after life after life. It's there. So if we worked as hard as we do making money, work as hard by making contact with that archetype, we don't have to worry about our finances of the future. And that would be an interesting discussion. We won't have to worry about our relationships, our marriages, where we're going to live, how we're going to live, because that prototype, the whole plan is there. You know, I remember back in college where we had to learn how to create an outline. Well, the outline is our prototype. Then we have to learn how to do the little a and the little b and the little c and the little d and the I and the I and the I. Drove me crazy. But we have the foundation, and the foundation is that archetype. It's there. It's in us. So we want to work from the blueprint of our future. This is how the construction is taking place. And that is the construction that we can go on into within our soul. The inner temple. See, it's another way to think about it. We have an inner temple. Imagine that. You know, we're not the victim of our poor health or our failures or our rejections and the people who have betrayed us. That's just, those are the distractions that prevent us from realizing this inner temple that is so magnificent, so beautiful. But we have to build this inner temple. How? As perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect. Welcome it and understand it. That's what the teaching says. It is improvement. Improvement. Our future. The enemies of perfection and progress turn our face to the past because of the obsession in them. But here is our challenge. We must turn the enemies of perfection. We must turn the enemies of perfection and progress to the future, to joy. Why is the future joyful? Think about this, because there is hope. It is vision. It is purpose. It is creativity. Now, when I read this in the teaching, it just blew my mind. It has to do with the theme of creativity. What is creativity? How do we create? And so forth. The teaching tells us that the past does not need creativity. Isn't that a fact? Isn't that amazing? It is so beautiful. The past does not need creativity. Why? Because it is finished. It is finished. That is why one of the greatest joy is creative thinking. So what is creative thinking? It is recreating ourselves. We are creating a new you, a new us. How? In the past, there was ruin. Now, we are building something that is more beautiful than ruin. We are building something more beautiful than the ruin. Instead of helping us to go to the future, these enemies of joy, they cut off our creative source. Now pay attention to this. Be vigilant. Vigilant is one-pointed focus. Vigilance is having one-pointed focus. Be vigilant of those like worms. Try to cut off our creative source and try to make us ugly. They are all around you, I guarantee you, whether they are in your home or in your little community or your big city or your relationships, your family. Be vigilant, be one-focused, and be aware of those who are trying to cut you off from your creative source. It's very complicated until you become vigilant. Is there anyone, any human being who has not been ugly in the past? The past is behind us. The future is ahead. So the friends of humanity, the friends of progress, will always inspire you. They are friends of progress, and we need to learn to recognize them. Are you yourself a friend of humanity, a friend of progress? If you are a friend, we are told this is how we're going to think. Quote, you know, there is some beauty in you. You did some ugly things. Okay. But always in my heart, I visualized you as beautiful, as a victorious one. In the future, of course I was angry. Of course I was exhausted sometimes, yet I never left out the image of God in you. Unquote. Do you think this way about your husband, your wife, your children, your friends, your enemies? If you want to become a friend of progress and to save yourself as well, then you're going to begin to think this way. Some people will say, well, don't you see that in that person? Of course we see that in that person, but that's not our focus. Because we're a friend of the future. We're a friend of progress, a friend of transformation. If we have the image of God within us, then we will have joy within us. How can we increase our joy if we don't have a future? So God is our future. Hierarchy is our future. The Master is our future. So you're depressed. Someone comes to you and says, don't worry. 3 days later, money will come. I know we've had this experience in little ways and sometimes big ways. Business will come and you will be so beautiful. These things are very real. I've had these experiences so many times that it's great to be able to share them. Look for people who are friends of your future. Or someone will come to you when you are sick and say, you are going to be healed. Tomorrow we will take you out of the hospital. I have a friend right now who is defying every odds, all the odds in the book of survival. Has cancer, lives in Brazil, had a hip replacement while having cancer, couldn't leave the hospital because she caught COVID 14 days ago. And she's still with us. She's defying all odds. Cancer, surgery, COVID, and she's still with us. A couple of years ago, a member was diagnosed with cancer. He became so afraid. He was in a lot of pain. He couldn't work, so he lost his income. He couldn't pay his rent. He couldn't support his family, and this and that. One night he called me. He was in so much pain, he was afraid. He was afraid to call the doctor. He was afraid to tell his wife. And I asked him, what are you afraid of? He said, I'm afraid my wife will think I am dying. I'm afraid the doctor will tell me I am dying. And I said, stop it. Stop it. First of all, you are in pain. You need to let your doctor know that you're in pain. Next, tell your wife that you need her love while you are in pain. Love is the greatest healer. Let her know so she'll feel close to you. And then I told him, I said, you're going to be healed. Do not be afraid. You are now in terrible pain, but you're going to be healed, and you're going to have a good future. And today he's alive. He has a new home. He's gone back to work. He is very happy, and he's in love. One day, another member from out of state called me and told me she was dying. Her doctor told her to go home and get her affairs in order. She was so afraid. And I said, let's begin to think about you healing yourself. And these are the things you can do to begin that process. And she lived. Why? Because now she had a future, see, in front of her. I told her she was so beautiful and that we were going to focus on her beauty. So observe and see that people who are in the business of slander and fear and treason and gossip and hatred and past business messes, they don't have joy in their family, in their heart, in their friendships. Just observe these things. They are poisoned, and they want somebody to release those poisons onto. Just look at them. We need to be poison neutralizers, not poison promoters. What is a poison promoter? A poison promoter is one that we identify and say, that's your truth. Your truth is my truth. And pretty soon, their truth begins to shoot more poison, more poison, more poison into us, because we're doing it ourselves. All those past failure images. Now that poison promoter has won again. They are the ones that are poisoned. I have this person who is still shooting poison into social media about her hatred of me. Unfortunately, it was a sort of family member. Just let it go. I mean, I'm worried about her because she's injecting that poison into herself. And she now has followers. She has followers believing her poison. But I'm neutralizing that poison because honestly and truly and deeply I see beauty in her. And that's how you neutralize. And that's why beauty is joy. Joy is beauty. So look at these poison promoters. I love that. I just made that up. Poison promoters. So just look at them. It has become a problem of epidemic proportions. But even to make those people, we are going to say something like, yeah, okay, I can see you're having problems, business problems, health problems. You are losing your money. You are losing yourself. But look to the future. You know, so you can be so beautiful. Can you do this? This is how we are going to build future joy and increase joy of life. I have people contact me every week who want to share their poison with me. It's somehow comforting to them to be able to share, that poison. If I allowed their poison to penetrate into my skin, I would no longer be here. There would be no future for me. So what do? This is why the teaching is so beautiful. It gives us a roadmap, a direction to follow, so we don't fall upon our own devices. Visualize their future, of being beautiful in the future. So this is interesting. This is just thought came to me back in the day when I was living in Sarasota, Florida, and I was with Torquem, and we were on the beach together. We were running up and down on the beach, and I was trying to keep up with him. He was only 40 years older than myself. And I was trying to keep up with him. And it was fun, and I was nervous. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. But I made it through it. We survived, and now I have this wonderful story to share. And later on that afternoon, we were at a banquet, and he was telling people how he and I, on the beach, we were having a soul-to-soul discussion. And he said, while she was busy dumping all of her problems onto me, I was talking to her soul about how beautiful she was. And he was. See, that's how we know it works. People try very hard to destroy the WMEA. Well, the WMEA is a baby that I gave birth to and is now nearly 39 years old. Would I allow people to poison my beautiful child? Of course not. Much in the same way that you will not allow anybody to poison your child. We want to protect our children. And in protecting our children, we must protect those who are trying to damage our children, our family, our group, our planet, our universe. So here are a few ways that we can increase the joy of the future. Try always when you are thinking, talking, and acting to see whether or not you are under past influences. This is when people say, I can't share the teaching, they won't understand it. What you don't say is, here's the teaching. What you say is, do you think a lot about your past failures? See, and that's practical. Just observe it. Do we think about, are you thinking about your past influences? When you are thinking, are you in the past, or maybe you're in the present, or maybe you're in the future? It is not so easy, but once you get it, then you're going to be successful. This is the first step, to see if you are serving the past or the future. 2, try to see how the past is affecting negatively your success in any field. Past thinking, past talking, past actions, all based on the past. See how these 3 are affecting your success. Negativity, affecting your success negatively and your life negatively. A couple begins to argue, then one says, wait, let's forget it all. Let's feel good about our friendship, about how we can trust one another. Let's not destroy our day-to-day with our arguing. Isn't that great? Then the next moment comes, and they get into the past, and when the past comes, they divorce or separate, or their business fails because they went to the past. We have 2 restaurants in town, one in Prescott Valley and now one in Prescott, owned by a married couple. And the irony is, the one in Prescott Valley is now failing. And the wife owns it, and she's been busy. Every time I used to go down there, she would tell me all the horrible things her husband was doing and how he was going to fail, and everything was so negative. Well, 3 weeks ago, I discovered he's opened up a business in Prescott, and it is so successful. I go in there, "Hi, Joleen, how are you? It's so good to see you." And we chat, and his food is better than ever. It's the same recipe that he cooked with his wife down in Prescott Valley. And then his wife walked in. One day when I was sitting there waiting for my food, and I thought, yeah, I did. What do? I felt like I'm caught in the middle because she wanted me to side with her. And then here she is. And I'm hoping they're going to get back together because he's got a success mind, a successful way of thinking. We'll see. If you have been married in the past and are ready to try marriage again, don't start your marriage from the past, from thoughts of failure and fears and this and that. Think this: our marriage is going to be so beautiful. It is going to be very successful. I am going to be successful. We are going to be successful. Do you see how beautiful it is when you identify with the image of the success of the future? Once the joy starts to circulate in you because of your dreams and visions and hope, this is what happens. Energy begins to circulate. And this is what I saw with the husband. He had energy. I could not believe how much energy this man. He comes from the back of the restaurant, runs to the door, opens the door, and lets me in. Is this the same man? He has hope, he has vision, he has success. Energy is circulating. Number 3. Okay, I'm not going to get to all of these this morning. So let me forget about number 3 and let me go to number 4. Create an opposite image. For example, someone hurt you and you're carrying that hurt in your life forever. Now imagine that you're not going to act as that person acted, that you're going to reverse it. This is called tactica adversa. Sit down and in your imagination see that person sitting in front of you. Say, "Hi, give me a hug." And then hug that person. Make a drama in your mind and say very beautiful things to that person. You can see something is happening already. Joy is increasing in you. When you feel joy, you already did something subjectively. And it will come to objectivity because you did something. So here's a secret. When you feel joy, you already did something subjectively. And it will come to objectivity, come to form. You did something. No matter how they resist you, don't forget, they are like Lot's wife. They are salt pillars. It is not easy to bring change because they are crystallized salt. Interesting, isn't it? It is difficult to bring about these changes, but that's okay. It's okay because in trying to make these changes, we are already surpassing ourselves. So let me close with, I'm jumping over a few, and let me close with this last one. See yourself advancing and progressing toward the future. Physical future, spiritual future, your divine future. Visualize it for 10 minutes daily. In 3 years' time, you will be a new person. Nobody can change you. You are going to change yourself, striving toward the future. Master Moria says, those who are alive strive toward the future. The dead go toward the past. A disciple came to the Christ and said, Master, my relative died. I want to go and bury him. He answered, let the dead bury the dead. You are alive. Why are you alive? Because you are following me. I am the future. I am life. This means to let them bury their dead, their gossips, their slanders, their past craziness and messes. Let them bury all that stuff. It is better not to make the mistake, first of all. But if we are given choices and we make mistakes, we're going to learn from these mistakes and then potentially prevent other people from making these mistakes as well. In New Era Community, verse 156, it says, we summon those co-workers who know the difficulties. We call to those who will not turn back. We summon those who know that joy is a special wisdom. I'm going to read this again. We're going to go over a couple of minutes, but this is so cool. It's so powerful. Again, it's from New Era Community, verse 156. He says, we summon those co-workers who know the difficulties. We call to those who will not turn back. We summon those who know that joy is a special wisdom.